U.S.-Israel ties hit a new low. President Joe Biden openly criticizing Netanyahu and urging the premier to walk away from his current judicial overhaul legislation, saying he's very concerned about the health of Israeli democracy. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Biden warned that Israel cannot continue down this road. The American president also said no invitation to the White House would be extended to Netanyahu in the near term. The Israeli premier quickly responded by insisting that he was seeking to restore the proper balance between the three branches of government, and Israel would not make decisions based on overseas pressure, even from the best of friends. Opposition figure Benny Gantz reacting, saying Biden's comment was an urgent wake-up call to Israel. Damage to relations with Israel's most important ally is a, quote, strategic attack. Take a listen.
Like many strong supporters of Israel, I'm very concerned. And I'm concerned that they get this straight. They cannot continue down this road. And I've sort of made that clear. Hopefully the Prime Minister will act in a way that he can try to work out some genuine compromise, but that remains to be seen.
Would I invite the Prime Minister Netanyahu to the White House, sir?
No.
Will be coming to Washington?
Not in the near term.
And joining me now is Dr. Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Ambassador, always a pleasure to have you here in studio.
Pleasure to be here.
So we're hearing a striking change of tone from the president himself. How big is the damage in the relationship?
Well, I know Joe Biden very, very well. He was my point of contact during my time in Washington during the Obama years. And he is a man who loves the state of Israel, cares deeply about our relations, has a very close relationship with Netanyahu going back really 40 years.
Right.
Having said all that, in this country we've had demonstrations of hundreds of thousands of people. So it was the equivalent of millions of Americans going out to the street. All of it was peaceful. Respectful, flying the flag. I don't think a country that has experienced not so long ago an insurrection is in a position to be preaching democracy to Israel or in fact to anybody. So I think it is not exactly in a position to telling us what is democratic and what's not democratic. Having said that, from my own experience, when the United States intervenes in this way in our internal politics, it actually has a boomerang effect. It has the effect of getting Israelis to say, well, we don't like to see our government being beat up certainly by a bigger power. It looks like they're being bullied. And a certain percentage of the population, not insignificant percentage of the population, will rally around the government and actually make it stronger because they resent that type of interference. So the whole thing is kind of a boomerang. As for not inviting Netanyahu to the White House, that's certainly the prerogative of the White House. I think that Joe Biden personally has what I would call the Ramat Shlomo scar. If you remember this, this is back in the ancient history of 2010 during Biden's visit to this country as vice president. During his here, some elements of the Israeli government declared a building project in an East Jerusalem neighborhood of Ramat Shlomo, and it became a huge crisis between the two countries. I think that Biden is afraid that if he invites Netanyahu to the White House, somebody here, one of those ministers, is going to declare a spate of illegal building or some actions against Palestinian civilians, as has been done already in the past, and there Netanyahu will be at the White House, and that again will cause a great crisis between the two countries. And why do that? Why do that at this time? We don't need it. Neither country needs it.
Right.
So having said that, I think that I don't think we're at an all-time low in relationships. I've been personally witness to some of those all-time lows. This is low, but not all-time low. It's good. And again, I think it would be wise if people kept their opinions on the telephone and personal conversations rather than public. We don't see the President of the United States criticizing French President Macron over what's going over there. It's really singling Israel out.
Right. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but what could be the consequences of this on the strategic relations between the two countries?
Well, that's a very severe question. That's a very significant question, and it's this. Listen, the United States certainly has an interest in stability in this country. That Israeli government is capable of making decisions, particularly at this critical juncture, as Iran approaches the ability to make a nuclear weapon in a very short period of time. The United States needs Israel to be in a capacity to make those type of decisions. And I'm not sure if this government made those type of decisions today, what would be the ability or the willingness of a large segment of the Israeli population to carry it out. That's very, very severe implications for the strategic relationship between the two countries. And here the United States does have an interest, not just in Israeli democracy, but in Israeli stability. We are an American aircraft carrier in very stormy seas in the Middle East, and they need us to have a strong hand on the wheel.
Absolutely. And you alluded to that boomerang effect, and I want to ask you to that point, what could be some of the consequences to the responses that we're hearing come out of the coalition this morning?
And the coalition will rally around itself, around the Prime Minister. And that's been my experience, not just during the Obama years. I'm an historian by training, and I'll tell you that historically, that has been the reaction to that type of criticism by any foreign leader, not just by the American foreign leaders. We see what happens when European leaders criticize the state of Israel, too. The same phenomenon. By the way, I think it's a natural human reaction, not just an Israeli reaction.
Absolutely. And in your experience, you were ambassador to the United States during the Obama administration. Have you ever witnessed such a critical tone from the United States vis-a-vis Israel?
More critical. That does not in any way diminish the severity of these remarks. They are severe, they are unique, and I think that they need better expressed on a telephone in a personal conversation and not in front of the press. But I've seen the Prime Minister invited to the White House but escorted through the back entrance and not posing for a photograph with the President, not giving a meal. One particular evening we were given crackers and cheese during during a Prime Minister. That is a low tone.
So you're saying hope is not all lost.
No, it's not.
I want to ask you, how far could this spat go with all the responses going? Is this an isolated incident, or do you think this will go further?
My fear here is much deeper. Okay, if Israel were to get into a military operation of a small scale, say vis-a-vis Hamas and Gaza, much larger vis-a-vis Iran, if during the Ramadan month there's significant outbreak of violence in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, and Israel has to respond militarily, we traditionally have always had to rely on the United States for resupply of vital types of ammunition, and also what I call the diplomatic Iron Dome. Diplomatic Iron Dome is the willingness of the United States to cast a veto in the Security Council, because the Security Council condemnation of Israel can be used as a basis for international sanctions and boycotts against Israel. So it actually has a strategic, not just symbolic, a strategic. And what we're doing is creating a situation where if we have to call on the United States in an emergency, the United States might be less willing to come to our aid than they would under different circumstances.
Absolutely. Ambassador Michael Oren, always a pleasure to have you here in studio. We'll have to see how this plays out.